All right, hello everyone, and thank you for being here on behalf of the Environmental Finance Center Network. Welcome to another webinar in our Green Infrastructure webinar series. Today's session is on funding for green infrastructure and nature-based solutions to water, wastewater, and stormwater challenges. My name is Shannon Sloan Pepper. I'm with the Southwest Environmental Finance Center, and I'll be your host for this and other webinars in the series. This series is made possible with funding from the US EPA under a grant aimed at helping rural, small, and tribal communities and wastewater treatment systems access funding. The goal is compliance with the Clean Water Act to prevent, reduce, and eliminate pollution in our water. Now, before we begin, I'm going to go over a few webinar logistics. So, during the webinar today, everybody will be kept on mute to ensure audio quality. If you have a question, please just type it into the GoToWebinar question dialog box anytime throughout the session. We'll be saving your questions for a facilitated Q&A at the end of the presentation. After the webinar, you'll receive a follow-up email with a link to the webinar recording and any other information that you might need. You can also download the slides from today and as well as the series flyer in the Handouts tab in your GoToWebinar control panel. Slides will also contain URLs to the resources that we link. On the screen here are instructions for how to open the control panel. So this webinar has not been submitted for pre-approval of continuing education credits, but eligible attendees will receive a certificate of attendance for their personal record. To receive a certificate for the session, you must attend for the entire session and register and attend individually using your real name and a unique email address. Certificates will be sent within 30 days of the webinar date. If you have any questions or need any assistance, go ahead and contact smallsystems@syracusesyr.edu. So just a little about us. We're the Environmental Finance Center Network. My organization, the Southwest EFC, is part of that network. We provide training and technical assistance to small water, wastewater, and stormwater systems in all US states and territories through our capacity building programs. If your community or utility needs assistance through our capacity building programs, please feel free to contact us through our request form, which will be shared shortly in the chat. So our intention with this webinar series is really to highlight the ways that effective planning, implementation, and maintenance of green infrastructure demands partnerships across departments and disciplines. This requires us as organizers of the series to also look to our colleagues in planning, engineering, policy, landscape architecture, community coalitions. The list really goes on. And we want to also reach academics, practitioners, and students. So here's an overview of our webinar schedule. We'll be doing these webinars approximately quarterly, so make sure to check back on the EFCN website for updated event pages as we get closer to each webinar release. You can also sign up for email updates at the link that we'll drop in the chat. It's the training and events page. Each webinar is recorded, so you can watch either the live or recorded versions. The recordings will be posted to the event page for the webinar and will also be available on the EFCN YouTube channel. So our goal for this webinar today is for you all attending to gain familiarity with the range of possible types and compositions of partnerships that make green infrastructure possible. You'll learn how partnerships aid in green stormwater funding and investment challenges, and you'll also walk away with 3 concrete examples of how these concepts can work in practice. And that's just about all we're going to have time for in the next hour or so. Please remember that you can take down our contact information and follow up with us if you want to talk more about anything that we covered today. Our doors are open. And I'm just going to do a quick recap, few slides on green infrastructure in a moment here. But these are some of our speakers that you can look forward to today. We have representatives from Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and Seattle, all part of the Green Infrastructure Leadership Exchange, which you'll hear more about in a few minutes. We'll go over some resources for you all, and then we'll have a question and answer session with our speakers at the end of the presentation. So if you have questions throughout, make sure that you're utilizing that questions tab in your GoToWebinar control panel. So before we launch into the guest speaker presentations, I'm just going to do a few basics of green infrastructure as it relates to water, wastewater, and stormwater systems. See, I'm having an unstable internet connection, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn off my video here. All right. So if this is the first webinar in the series that you're attending, please know that you can also view the full version of our first webinar, which was recorded and is now hosted on the EFCN website, as well as a YouTube channel with all of our previous webinars listed on it. For those of you who are returning,
And we don't see your PowerPoint anymore.
Okay. How about now?
It's back. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you for letting me know. Appreciate it. Okay. So what makes green infrastructure such a compelling water management option for communities of all sizes? So when thinking about the words water infrastructure, most people associate to things like pipes, pumps, concrete line drainage ditches, or treatment plants. Infrastructure assets that are made primarily from concrete and steel. So what about the green part? What are we talking about there? There's no official or universally agreed upon definition of green infrastructure, but for the purpose of this series, I'll break it down this way. So with green infrastructure, we're talking about water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure that integrates natural systems like plant growth and the water cycle and soil filtration as part of the function of the infrastructure. So beyond just bacterial and biochemical processes that we usually would associate with wastewater treatment plants. And this could look like a vegetated swale, it could look like a rain garden, or a wetland that is either constructed or naturally occurring. So from this pictures, it might seem like I'm creating some kind of dichotomy of green versus gray, but actually in most cases that we advocate using both types of infrastructure, and we do need them to work together well. So let's look at an example of green and gray infrastructure that share a function but look a little bit different on the ground. Here we have concrete sewer pipes whose function is the conveyance of stormwater away from roads and buildings. Its green counterpart is an infiltration trench, we could say. This one is situated along a parking lot. And so added or co-benefits of the infiltration trench could include filtration of water through the soil, which allows plants and fungi in the trench to break down pollutants associated with the adjacent roadway. And then that would look like heavy metals, oils, that kind of thing. And this is a feature that the community can also enjoy walking along. The plants are cooling the air and the soil, improving air quality, and also capturing carbon and other airborne particles. So if you're still confused about what green infrastructure is and what it looks like at different scales, you can watch the first webinar in our series. It's called Green Infrastructure 101. It'll give you a much broader and longer overview and more examples of green infrastructure. So why are we advocating for green infrastructure? It's also called nature-based solutions. A big reason is climate resiliency. So much of our current infrastructure was built in with a very different idea of what a 100-year storm might look like. Here in New Mexico, that looks like longer periods of drought, which is followed by deluges of precipitation, which are far outside historical norms on both aspects. And much of our aging storm sewer infrastructure is not really built to handle those volumes of water. And we're losing a lot of that fresh rainwater as runoff. So green infrastructure at all scales can capture, slow, and filter stormwater right where it falls. And this reduces the burden on treatment plants, and it simultaneously improves water quality by treating that water before it returns to the sources that we use for drinking, such as rivers, lakes, groundwater, etc. There's also co-benefits to green infrastructure. In addition to slowing and filtrating rainwater, there are a huge range of co-benefits for humans and wildlife. And these co-benefits are wide-ranging. You can kind of start to think of some of them as you go through these presentations today, but they include shade, habitat, public open space, these types of co-benefits. Then also here in the US, we have partnerships are particularly important for green infrastructure. And in the US, both in law and down to the community level, drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater systems are generally built and managed as separate from one another, even though all the water on Earth here is part of the same system, which is the water cycle. But often there is limited understanding of how to fund and implement green infrastructure because it demands cross-disciplinary and cross-department collaboration in order to be successful. So that's really why we're all here today, right? Is to look at some examples of green infrastructure partnership in action. And so without any further ado, I'm going to pass the presentation over to Barbara Hopkins from Green Infrastructure Leadership Exchange to introduce our speakers for today.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Shannon. I'm pleased to be here to talk about the power of partnerships, because great partnerships thrive given that people need each other, according to the renowned television writer Courtney Kemp. Next slide, please. And partnerships are at the heart of what we do as an organization, a cross-sector social impact network and community of practice that seeks to scale the equitable implementation of green stormwater infrastructure across the United States and Canada. Next slide, please. Our theory of change is mostly about scaling the equitable implementation of GSI, as I mentioned, and we do this by first framing best implementation practices and then sharing those practices with others through education and training programs. Next slide, please. And at the heart of this framing exercise is this framework of GSI practice, which is both an outline of the elements of a strong local government GSI program and an online compendium, which you can get to by scanning the QR code there, of the principles, best practices, and case studies that help to bring the 9 elements here to fruition. You'll note that among the 9 elements, there's one shown as building workforce and capacity in the kind of lower left part of the circle there, that includes partnerships, because if there's one thing that is abundantly true about this work, it's that local governments can't do it alone. They can't do it without partnerships across municipalities and across stormwater utilities, and they can't do it without the participation of nonprofits, the public, and the private sector. Next slide, please. And to elaborate on these points, you're going to hear from 3 of our absolutely terrific local government members today. First, Amanda Barnett, who is a senior planner and liaison at Seattle Public Utilities and Seattle Parks and Recreation. She actually has a unique role that tries to break down silos within local government, and you're going to enjoy hearing from Amanda. Next, Aaron Kirkland, Superintendent of Green Stormwater Operations from the Philadelphia Water Department, is going to talk about a great partnership with a nonprofit and how that nonprofit has helped PWD build an absolutely fantastic workforce development program for green stormwater. And finally, Lisa Sasso, who is a senior project planner with the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewer District, who's also got a great partnership to tell you about. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to, I should say that my good friend and I will hand it over to Amanda Barnett.
Thank you, Barbara. Thanks so much for having me here. Partnerships with people and cats are very important. Also with salmon, which we have right here. So as Barbara mentioned, my name is Amanda Barnett, and I'm with the City of Seattle. I'm a liaison between 2 Seattle departments, the Department of Seattle Parks and Recreation and Public Utilities. And so a lot of the work that I do is around green stormwater infrastructure partnerships. And before I begin today, I wanted to just share our land acknowledgement from the Green Seattle Partnership, which was developed in partnership with many different groups. And if you have any interest or need more information about where this land acknowledgement came from, feel free to look up Green Seattle Partnership, which is part of the Seattle Parks and Recreation's Natural Resource Unit. We acknowledge that the City of Seattle and its green spaces are on stolen Coast Salish land, specifically the ancestral land of the Duwamish, Suquamish, Stillaguamish, and Muckleshoot people. We recognize the stewardship of Seattle's green spaces by the Coast Salish people since time immemorial, the disruption of this work by colonization, and now endeavor to continue this work. We make this acknowledgement to remind ourselves that by being here today, we strive to remedy this injustice through our beliefs and actions in helping to steward our green spaces and communities in Seattle. All right, next slide, please. So I'm here today to talk to you about a really exciting project that is a partnership between Seattle Public Utilities, Seattle Parks and Recreation, as well as a third community-based organization, or CBO, Mid-Sound Fisheries Enhancement Group. I'll tell you a little bit about the site for this project and some of the project drivers, and then give you a brief explanation about how we've structured our partnership, moving on to some of the progress that we've made to date, including, around a 60% design, as well as cost sharing and site management plan assumptions. And then if there's time, I'm timing myself, I promised Shannon I would do that. I will get into some of the high level strengths and challenges. Next slide, please. So the site that we chose to pursue this project on is along a creek in Seattle called Thornton Creek. And so Thornton Creek watershed is the largest in Seattle. Seattle has lots and lots of creeks, but Thornton is the largest. And the south branch of Thornton is more than 50% publicly owned, which is tremendously beneficial for us to make sure that there's floodplain area, that the creek has restoration opportunities, that people have access to the creek, and that our maintenance and O&M and natural resource crews can access it. However, the north branch of the creek has no public access between Jackson Park, which you can see in this map here, as well as Mapes Creek, or I'm sorry, Meadowbrook Pond. So that's a tremendously long part of the branch that we don't have any public ownership, public access, and very little ownership around. So you can see the project site is kind of right in the middle of that north branch. Next slide, please. So zooming in a little bit, the parcel, which is, roughly about an acre, and it's shown in here as a little boot, kind of on the top left corner of this image in green hash. That parcel is located just outside of the Lake City Urban Village. This neighborhood is historically very auto-oriented, lots of hardscaping. It is really a mixed-use community, but there's lots of industrial or industrially adjacent uses. And so we're trying to bring green space to this area that isn't really available for anybody who lives inside of this urban core. The area itself is also really high on the city's equity index map, and that has it representing kind of a high share of population of people of color, people who have socioeconomic disadvantage and health disadvantage. So it's very important to bring green space in particular into a walkable distance of the urban core. Next slide. So in 2009, Seattle Public Utilities identified some of the best locations along the north branch of Thornton Creek for floodplain reconnection. And this is just a sampling of some of the opportunities that we see. And Shannon did a great job of talking through what green stormwater infrastructure examples can look like. In Seattle, we've expanded green stormwater infrastructure to include creek restoration that offers floodplain reconnection. This alleviates flooding and pressures both upstream and downstream, but also improves water quality and natural habitat for salmonid species in particular, but just generally beneficial for ecological purposes. So we identified this site to be tremendously beneficial within Thornton Creek, and the goal of this work is to continually identify places along the creek where there can be contiguous acquisitions or other ways that we might provide for floodplain reconnection, because we know that enhancing our creeks and our rivers is a cumulative effort that requires work along the entire branch of the creek. Next slide, please. This is a diagram of our partnership. So I mentioned before, we are a little bit unique to this project. This is the first time we've ever done this. We are 2 city departments working together and have done everything together, nearly 50-50 split since the very beginning, from early conceptual planning and design through grant acquisitions, through engagement, and will be doing so into construction and ongoing operations and maintenance. But our third sort of key partner in all of this is Mid-Sound Fisheries Enhancement Group, and they have been the lead through early planning and into 60% design. It's been tremendously helpful to have a community-based organization, particularly in this neighborhood where there may be some distrust of government. They also bring expertise that the city just doesn't have around grant acquisitions, around particular types of engagement, and we really benefited from their leadership. And they are as an organization, they are really committed to salmon restoration and environmental education. And so the benefits of this group in particular will continue to be seen on this site moving past project delivery. And then I just want to mention, this diagram also shows that at the core of our partnership is the Lake City community. And so throughout the project, we have really centered community, and I'll talk a little bit more about engagement in just a second, but investment into this community is coming from all 3 of our partners, as well as through external funders who we've been able to work with to leverage grant funding, in particular King County. Next slide, please. So the 3-way partnership that we have has brought a lot of complexity into our coordination, but it really has some strengths. And one of those is Mid-Sound's excellent relationship building and community engagement skills. So engagement, as you can see in this photo, was meant to be fun and to meet people where they're at. We developed multilingual materials and worked at in-person events at community centers, farmers markets, and other neighborhood festivals that really were meant to leverage connection, but not necessarily dictate how the community might come to us. And so Mid-Sound led that effort tremendously well. Next slide, please. Some of the complexities that I mentioned earlier around having a 3-part partnership is that traditional performance requirements, particularly around some of these more engineered systems, had to involve our 2 city departments really working together to define what those were. And I'll just name that some of the departmental goals and performance requirements are actually in conflict. And so there were a lot of places where Seattle Parks and Recreation and Seattle Public Utilities had to really think and continue to think through the design to make sure that we're really getting those multiple benefits without not in disservice of either one of our department's goals. So some of those included maximizing floodplain. That's a tremendous driver for this project. Also improving fish habitat through channel complexity, adding, I think you can see on the top right photo, that's what the creek looks like now, facing south. So you'll see a culvert that the creek moves into. It's a heavily incised channel. We are going to increase the width of the creek and allow for flooding through a floodplain that will bring tremendous benefits to water quality and natural habitat. Vegetation enhancement and management will also be a very important part of salmon habitat in particular, but also the park itself in terms of restoration goals. Some of the sort of interesting pieces are how active or passive our park space will be. If there's going to be amenities that include access to the creek, has been and continues to be an important question that we ask. We also want to provide the space for the city to, or for the community to immerse themselves in this natural space. And then we want to think into the future. What are our future challenges related particularly to climate change and impacts that we'll face from increased heat, larger storm events, maybe more frequent storms, but then also how will we access the site for O&M into the future. Next slide, please. So this part's really exciting. These are our designs, and I intentionally put our 30% design and our 60% design on this slide because I wanted you all to see some of the really difficult conversations that we had to have weighing what the community was really asking for and what we wanted to provide to them, which was a lot of people were asking for loop trail, the ability to walk in and out of the park at multiple locations. That's generally speaking a park's best practice. It allows for people to feel safer in a space. It gives options for movement, and on the 30% design, we did design a loop trail. A lot of that area would have been detrimental to the actual restoration of the floodplain. So today we have a little bit of a different design where it's more of a gathering area in the back that allows for people to kind of be mobile in that area and are able to really experience the extent of the park, but might not increase the hardscaping and in particular the construction on steep slopes on the southeastern portion of the site. We also increased the ability for mobility, ADA access down to sitting gathering area, which was not previously available. That is something that we're really trying to focus on with this park. And then lastly, a really important part of our conversation is around whether we provide specific areas that allow for people to actually access the creek. So much of what people want is to be able to play and recreate and touch and fish in this resource that people have in their backyards. And so not shown in the 60% design is the idea that we'll probably have an out and back that leads to the creek that allows for people to access at least some of the water. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to also highlight, this is our 60% plans again, but this is through the lens of art interventions. And one tremendous benefit of our partnership is that we have a we have access to the city's 1% for the arts program, which is typically based off of the capital portfolio budget of a particular department. And the utilities capital portfolio budget is just much larger than the Parks and Recreation departments. And what that means is this is a park that's going to get a lot of art funding through that program, when typically parks might not have as much. And so this is just another win for how we sort of partner and stretch public dollars to benefit communities. Next slide, please. And I'm going to move really fast through these next few slides because I am nearly at time. So I just wanted to share a very high level summary of some of our costs. I'm sharing with you all. I didn't know too much about the Finance Center before being asked to join this webinar, but I imagine that financing is something that's somewhat interesting to this group, so I thought I'd put some real numbers to this. And so we, everything that's in red that has a red asterisk is when both departments, Seattle Public Utilities and Seattle Parks and Recreation, actually split costs. This was a big decision point that our departments had. Typically, we would maybe split costs based off of types of assets, line by line, what we call below or above the ordinary high water mark for creeks. But both departments said, you know what, this is going to be a beneficial project for both of us, and more importantly, for everybody in this community and for the city in general. And so let's just think about this as us partnering together and splitting things down the middle. The other thing I want to point out is that Mid-Sound Fisheries Enhancement Group was able to fundraise $1.6 million, which went towards all of the design work up to 60% and beyond. And as you can see, the total design work is $2.4 million. So they fundraised well over more than half of that. And that was another just tremendous benefit of partnering with them and their expertise. Next slide, please. Again, I'm not going to read all these because I'm running out of time, but the image on the right is a picture from the site during a flood event. And this was, I'm not sure what year it was, but it wasn't very long ago. And so these are the site conditions that we are dealing with today. On the bottom right is an image of not this site, but a restored site that we are using as a model for site maintenance and management, which was also a partnership project and a creek restoration project that allowed for floodplain reconnection. So the opportunity to turn the picture on the top to the bottom is what we're trying to endeavor. This will include a lot of planning around site management. And so we have been continuing to figure out just who's responsible for what, but the partnership benefit is that we've been in contact since the very beginning, and there is really good rapport and synergy between our two departments. So we are very, very hopeful that our site management plan, which we're drafting now, will really elevate both of our shared expertise and highlight some of the complexities of sharing the site and having some different performance requirements, but acknowledging that together we make a really good team. And my last slide is on lessons learned. I don't know if I have time for that or if we should move on, and maybe if there's time at the end.
Yeah, that sounds okay. And also just want to reiterate that we'll have these slides available to everyone. So if you read the slide and you have some questions about it, feel free to reach out to me or reach out to our speakers about any of those questions. And you can also put it in the Q&A as well.
And I think if you go one more slide, Shannon, my contact information is here. So please feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'm happy to share more about this project.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to our next presenter, Aaron. You can go ahead and unmute.
You hear me? Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Kirkland. I am the grounds maintenance superintendent of the Green Stormwater Operations Unit for the Philadelphia Water Department. My responsibilities include the oversight and buildup of an internal maintenance team dedicated to the aesthetics and functionality of green stormwater infrastructure. Today I want to talk about workforce development through community partnerships and how the power of partnerships assisted in the build out of this internal maintenance team. Next slide. So the Philadelphia Water Department is a three-pronged utility, drinking water, serving Philadelphia and the surrounding counties, wastewater, and stormwater. Philadelphia has a combined sewer system that serves about 60% of Philadelphia. Historically, Philadelphia had 400 miles of streams that were converted into covert sewer systems, causing the issue of overflow. So we were, to meet the state and federal regulations, we created the Green Cities Clean Waters. It's a 25-year plan to reduce the volume of stormwater entering our combined sewers using green infrastructure, and also increasing the capacity of our traditional infrastructure and creating improvements. Next slide. So today we have roughly 2,000 stormwater management practices in Philadelphia through the Green Cities Clean Waters program. With the build of these assets, it was important that we focus on our maintenance efforts. Once the asset is developed, we have to protect that investment. So today I want to talk about the PWD grounds maintenance team. We maintain roughly 40% of citywide stormwater management practices. And in this chart, you can see over time how we've slowly increased our scope of work and the staff needed to do so. Next slide, please. So the overview of Green Stormwater Operations Unit, we started off with the name GSI Maintenance Group. It was created in FY 2010, and we were under a unit called the Office of Watersheds. The following few months, we decided to take on 21 pilot sites, but not internally, but through contractors. 100% of our maintenance was done through contractors, and some of our subsurface features were limited to PWD and contracted out as well. In 2015, we decided to build out our first internal maintenance team dedicated to the maintenance of these systems. That included myself and two other individuals who transitioned through a workforce development program called PowerCore PHL. In 2017, GSIMN, we decided to move on to PWD operations. It just made so much more sense. Maintenance had become so much more, and operations made sense. Operations include technical staff, environmental scientists, environmental engineers, park water technicians, but also the grounds maintenance staff, the boots on the ground. We began to increase support from PowerCore PHL, the Workforce Development Program, and also continue to contract some of the labor for surface and subsurface features. Additional support was given through our Soak It Up adoption program for our community members that were engaged in some of the work. So currently, then we have 2,000 stormwater management practices throughout Philadelphia, and we are continuing to fulfill our operations and maintenance requirements. Next slide. So the power of partnerships was very important in the early stages of the build out of this team. PowerCore PHL is a workforce development program under AmeriCorps, where individuals from the ages of 18 and 32, I believe, who may face some challenges with getting into the workforce, begin to develop skill sets that make them more attractive to companies and other organizations. We begin this partnership to establish our maintenance program, working alongside PWD, partnering with PowerCore to begin basic maintenance, like aesthetic maintenance and things of that nature. Next slide, please. So the overview of PowerCore's aesthetic maintenance program, it included minor maintenance, aesthetics, organic materials removed, construction debris, the hand pulling of weeds, but we also did collaborated projects with PWD staff. But this segue into our ground maintenance team, where we was able to transfer the skills from individuals that had completed the PowerCore program into a civil service position with Philadelphia Water Department. The importance PowerCore played out in the buildup of our program was the impact that they had on community. They took pictures before a maintenance event and after a maintenance event, and highlighting the work that they had done. It just makes sense to continue to keep the partnership, strengthen the partnership, and use the folks that come through the program to build out the internal maintenance team. Next slide, please. So our pipeline from apprentice to permanent civil servant, it started out with myself. I was one of the first apprentices to come through the PowerCore program and into Philadelphia's apprenticeship program. It was the early stages of this program, and we continued to build it out to make it better, increase trainings and things that staff needed to transition. The apprenticeship program is 12 to 24 months. Staff are temporary employees. During that 12 to 24 months, they are paired with a mentor within the unit. They shadow that mentor. The mentor is a part of their performance plan and their evaluation process. We've been very successful with our apprenticeship program. Apprentices have been the building blocks of our team. But once completing the program, they have the skill sets and the qualifications to test in for civil service status, civil service positions. One of the things I do want to highlight is that under the Mayor Nutter administration, he made it so that AmeriCorps points added on to those who had completed AmeriCorps programs, so that they had an extra leverage in testing for civil service status. Next slide. So the importance of developing people from the community that are doing the work in the community is one of my highest priorities. We have developed training surrounding the work that needs to be done. One of the main trainings that we partnered with the Center for Watershed Protection Agency was the GSI Maintenance Certificate Program. I am a certified instructor. It is an ANSI accredited program. It has 5 modules that introduce staff to GSI maintenance, from surveying to actual maintenance to reading site plans. But to supplement this training, we also have an internal grounds training series, where we implement pruning training, planting training, plant identification, mulching, introduction to our asset management system, CityWorks, erosion control training, and seeding, and some other trainings that support staff. Next slide, please. So this is a overview of our ground maintenance training series. What we've done is we've aligned the training to meet the season. So what I mean by that is when we're going into pruning season, we initiate pruning training beforehand. It just helps the team on the same page. But our apprentices go through this. It's all throughout the year. And staff that have been here for a while, they also go through maybe second levels of this in order to keep them their skills sharp and keep refreshers. Next slide, please. So with our internal maintenance training and the CWC training, we also just started building out this plant propagation training. We got a few staff people that were interested as a pilot. We started in fall of 2024. This plant propagation team started with seedlings from 5 different systems. We began to split and store different species at our headquarters. And we also included 15 different vegetable species just to teach staff about the different phases of growth, plant life, and to create the flexibility to fill in bare spaces at rain gardens, basins, and other systems. Next slide, please. The future of our trainings, I have facilitated a lot of our internal trainings, and so has the supervisors that report to me. But to be more efficient, what we are working on now is trying to transition into a LMS, a learning management system, where it's more flexible for staff to hop online, take a training. It's easier to track to see how folks are doing. Are they understanding the information? Do they need more training? But this is the future. So this is an example of a plant ID quiz. We have plenty of modules that we're working on, but the future, we're looking for more efficiency and keeping folks trained up. Next slide, please. So this is the example of our career ladder within my team. If you see, we start off with the Power Corps volunteers. That partnership helps us to pull from the pool of talent from Power Corps and some other workforce development programs. But when they come on as apprentices. We have been successful with hiring 30 total apprentices and 23 from Power Corps PHL. The next title would be entry level, a ground maintenance worker 1, where the skill sets are somewhat limited, understanding some hand tools and getting introduced to some power tools. The promotion after that would be the ground maintenance worker 2. They are more skilled and able to navigate some of the bigger equipment, trailer attachments, tractors, things like that, the dump trucks. And they support our crew chief, who is essentially our foremen that lead the teams out in the field. And then our leadership structure is myself, Malik Madley, Louis Romero. We kind of oversee the whole operations and making sure that work is done with good quality. Next slide, please. So the work, it's important that we understand data. We record data. All our crew chiefs are responsible for tracking costs of labor and equipment for each site visit through our asset management CityWorks. This allows us to see if the things that we're implementing is working. It also helps us make the case that investing internally is best when you think of cost efficiency and long-term sustainability of our maintenance efforts. So as of FY 2024, we have completed 5,000 work orders, and those work orders vary from vegetation cutbacks to watering, mulching, surface maintenance. Next slide. It's important that we remain organized with the number of stormwater management practices we're responsible for. We have this Gantt chart that keeps people on the same page, letting them know what we're doing in this season, what to expect for next season. Next slide, please. And our end result was creating green industry professionals through our partnership of Power Corps, PHL, and other workforce development groups. We have done so. Most of our leadership structure, maybe 60% of our leadership structure, have come through Power Corps or a similar program. So starting from the ground up, you really get passion when you invest in people from the community to do the work in that community. So we have been very successful with our model. Next slide, please. The Ways I would say is that you need to be intentional about building out a team dedicated to maintenance. Our apprenticeship program has been, again, the building blocks of our staff. We are now at 40% of all stormwater management practices now maintained in-house. Power Corp was the workforce engine that got everything started as far as partnerships. We have 30 plus staff that have come through partnerships. And the apprenticeship model, it provides real testimony and proof that if you invest in folks early, long term, and can retain talent, you have a well-oiled team. And for the future, as we continue to grow in our scope of work and systems that are coming online, our long-term success will solely depend on deepening community and hiring with our partners. Next slide. Next slide. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much, Aaron. And I'm going to go ahead and this point pass it on to our last presenter. Lisa, could you go ahead and unmute? And I'll start your presentation.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is, can you see me? My camera come up? There we go. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Sasso. I'm a senior project planner with the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District. I work on a variety of our green infrastructure funding programs, and I'm going to talk to you all today about our community-based green infrastructure. Next slide, please. This just shows one area of Milwaukee, and MMSD's mission is to envision a healthier, cleaner, resilient region. Next slide. So I just want to talk about why MMSD decided to have community-based public-private partnerships. We had a lot of different funding programs before, and on the right side, that chart, it shows MMSD, we have a 2035 vision. And what that is by the year 2035, we want to capture 740 million gallons of rainwater every time it rains. Which that is a ½ inch of rainwater. So the little rain barrels kind of show how we want to ramp up to meet our goals. And as you can see, the early 2010s was a lower amount, and now we're trying to implement in the 300-400 million gallon range. And so a lot of our existing funding programs were reimbursement based. They were only funded certain components. There was a lot of work on property owners to apply for our funding, and there were a lot of maintenance gaps. We weren't funding maintenance. There wasn't design put on MMSD's behalf. We only have so many project managers in our group doing green infrastructure to try to expand and meet our goals. We had to kind of think innovatively of how can we do this with the current resources that we have. And then a lot of our projects were people being proactive and applying for our funding, and they were getting gallons and they were good projects, but they might not be in areas where MMSD really needed to help capture that stormwater and get it out of our system to benefit us. So that's kind of the background on why we started this program, and then I'll kind of go over the different programs that we have within this. So next slide. So the overview, they're both community-based projects. Their names are just different. So we have Fresh Coast Protection Partnership, Phase 1, and we have Fresh Coast Green Communities, Phase 2 and 3. That really just means contract. It's not a phased approach, it just means contract. So each phase is charged with the consultant overseeing sourcing projects, so finding projects that meet our metrics, designing those projects, constructing the projects and bidding out that work, and then 5 years of vegetation establishment. So our first contract is with Corvius, now CIS. Their contract amount is about $30 million with the goal of 11.6 million gallons of capture through green infrastructure every single storm event. Their cost per gallon is $2.36. What that includes is sourcing the project's design and construction. Their payment structure, which I'll go into these more in detail in the next couple slides, is a fixed cost. So the consultant gets paid after inspection and assigned easement, and that cost is always $2.36 a gallon, no matter the project. And their metrics to hit projects were on private property, low to moderate income areas in our combined sewer system, and then outside of the city of Milwaukee. Our other two contracts are with Greenprint Partners. That program is Fresh Coast Green Communities. Those two contracts total a little over $30 million with the goal of 10.4 million gallons of green infrastructure capacity every time that it rains. That project cost per gallon is $2.48. That's design and construction. Their payment model is different, where it's a guaranteed maximum price that has fixed and variable costs. I'll go into a little bit more. And we pay the actual cost per gallon. So again, it's not that fixed cost per gallon. And the key main metrics for these two contracts are the combined sewer service area, a high social vulnerability index, which means areas that are known to have severe flooding issues, economic issues, air quality issues, and things like that. And then areas with a high imperviousness, a lot of hard surface. Next slide. I think I'm going to skip the next two just to get into the finance structure, so we have a little time. So you can skip the next one and then one more. Okay. So the fixed price, again, this is the Fresh Coast Protection Partnership Program. Some benefits about a fixed price model is the cost certainty. So MMSD, we know exactly what we're going to pay per gallon ahead of time. There's incentivized delivery. So the consultant CIS is only paid once a project is done and certified that the certain amount of gallons have actually been installed. It's a design and build at risk model. So all of the transfers of financial and delivery risk from MMSD to CIS, they must deliver functional certified GSI before we pay them. And then accountability through certification. So independent verification of the performance ensures there's transparency, quality control, and environmental benefits. So again, this is whether a project's true cost is $1 or $8. Again, we have a fixed price with them where we only pay $2.36 per gallon. Next slide. And then with Greenprint Partners, Fresh Coast Green Communities program, it's a guaranteed maximum price contract structure. So what this means at a very high level is that there is, one of the contracts is $20 million. If they go over $20 million to hit their goals, we only pay $20 million and they have to pay whatever else it takes to get to those goals. So it really guarantees that we're not going to pay more than that $20 million. Now, within that, the realization of how the world really works, we decided to have a guaranteed maximum price for the professional services. So things like finding projects, project management time, design work, and things like that, that has a guaranteed maximum price. So if I think it's like $1 million to find projects, if they don't find enough projects and they've hit $1 million, if it costs 1.2 million, that $200,000 would go on to Greenprint. Now for construction costs, that we didn't do a guaranteed maximum price. There's a certain amount we want to stay within, plus or minus a certain percentage, because we all know that bidding out projects, sometimes inflation or availability, supply chain can be variable, so we didn't want to make that unrealistic. So 30% of the contract has those strict guaranteed maximum price structures within them, and the other part allows for some flexibility of spending. Another really cool thing that we did within this program to try to help us get more gallons is that if a project has stormwater requirements, we will pay for 50% of those dollars for those gallons. And then whatever they do to go over that 50%, we will pay that full amount of that project. So we're still incentivizing what is needed to be done, but then if they go above and beyond, we pay those full gallons. We have a couple of different models where Greenprint might be the one that's in charge of the design, all of those items. And so we have that process. And then we also have one where if a project team already has their consultant on board, we work with them in that model as well. So the theme of this webinar being partnerships, we really, with our Corvius contract and our Greenprint, we couldn't do all this work in-house. We need the extra help with engineers and real estate and legal. So it really helps us make better holistic projects. And they're the ones going out into the communities, finding projects that meet our metrics, and then also are the ones working with those landowners and helping them understand this program. So it really is a very collaborative, wonderful partnership for these contracts. Next slide. I don't mean to talk fast, just trying to help to get through so we can get to the Q&A session. So the next two slides are just two project examples I wanted to share. So the first one is Davidson Park, as in the Harley Davidson motorcycles. So this project, it transformed a parking lot into a model of inner city green space. And if you look at the circle part of that project, all of those little rectangle tiles are motorcycle parking spots. So this is a really great feature for green space, gatherings, and things like that. CIS financed the green infrastructure up front with the green features that you see here of bioswales and native landscaping. We have impermeable pavement that is a little over 230,000 gallons every time that it rains. The project valued at $20 million, so Harley Davidson kicked in a lot of money, and we only paid for the green infrastructure gallons. So some of the pavement you see and the parking areas was not a part of it. So it really helped bring other funding together by us paying for that green component. Next slide. And then through our Fresh Coast Green Communities program with Greenprint Partners, one project I wanted to highlight is the Orthopedic Hospital of Wisconsin. That project is shown during construction. So this project had stormwater trees, native plantings, and bioretention basins that captured over 255,000 gallons. This project had a high SVI of 0.16. It's out of 1. It hit our high impervious area target. We try to have an imperviousness over 40, and this is located in our separate sewer area, not our combined. The construction start date was last July of 2024, and it was completed this March. The total project cost was $544,000 and was $2.13 a gallon. So again, that shows how we paid the true cost at $2.13. For the previous project, we paid that $2.36. So we really, with this project, we're bidding out the project, getting the true costs, and seeing what we are paying for. And with that, next slide. Okay, so that's my contact information. So this, I know, is very high level. This was kind of an overview of our new funding program that we're working towards. We also have some of our other funding programs that are really working towards this one to keep ramping up. We have our 4th contract that's going to be signed this month, and it really is trying to help us increase our green infrastructure gallon capture and ramp up our goals and really have that collaborative partnership between the public and private sector and finding great community partners for projects. And so after today, if there's questions, I am very happy to have a phone call or email follow-up to discuss anything as well if we don't get to it today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lisa. That was a really great overview. So I'm gonna go ahead and just thank all of our presenters today before we get into our Q&A and final slides here for taking the time to put these presentations together. And I know that they were all really brief, and that's kind of the nature of a webinar. But if you have any particular questions for any of our presenters, their contact info is on the screen here. And do feel free to reach out to us. Our doors are open.
I just want to comment, mine was .com, not .org. That was shown there, just in case anyone was taking a screenshot. It's .com, just to
great.
make sure
Okay, so that's
yeah.
awesome. So Lisa's is llsasso@mmsd.com, correct?
Correct. Yeah, correct. Thank you.
Okay, great. So before we get into our Q&A, I just wanted to highlight a couple of additional resources, partnership-based resources. So one is this community-based public-private partnerships guide. This is a guide from the EPA, and this is a guide based on what Lisa was talking about in her presentation. There are some good examples in here of possible partnership structures, governance, how they can be financed, and also how CBP3s tie into asset management plans. Since this report is from the EPA, there's also some good explanations of how partnerships can apply for federal funding through some of EPA's programs and how CBP3s connect to federal funding. This report, I will say, is slightly dated. It's from 2015, but the information in there is still quite good, and federal funding programs don't change a lot from year to year, so there's still some great information in there. I also just wanted to highlight the Southwest Environmental Finance Center's Integrated Asset Management Framework and the Green Asset Resource Database. This is a framework, a guidebook that's intended for utilities and planners as a method for blending your green and traditional gray asset management programs. And if you're not sure what asset management is, check it out on this website. And this framework has been used by a couple of cities across the country, so it's a really awesome resource. The Green Asset Resource Database is also linked in that guide, and it houses a list of different green assets with example photos, general costs for installation and maintenance, and then other relevant information. So you can check that out at the link that you see on the screen here. So at this point, we have some time for questions. I'm looking at the question and answer panel and I'm not seeing any questions. So if you had tried to put in a question in the question and answer panel, would you go ahead and just add it to the chat? I'm not sure if it's that we haven't gotten questions or if something's not working correctly, but if you did put a question into the Q&A, would you go ahead and just drop it in the chat so that we can all view it? We don't generally have no questions in a presentation like this, so I just want to make sure that we're not missing anyone. And while we're waiting for questions to come in, I wanted to just give, since Amanda, we kind of cut off your last slide in your presentation, do you want to just talk us through some of the lessons learned from your presentation, your project?
Sure, I'd be happy to. If that would be helpful.
I think that'd be great.
Or interesting to folks. I can definitely do that.
Yeah, that would be great.
Do you want to go back to that slide?
Let's see. Yeah, I think I can do that. I'm gonna have to fly through the slides here. Everyone close your eyes. Yeah. Oh, wait. That's the one, right?
Yeah, that's the one. So the photo is just another image from the sort of interactive, youth-focused engagement with community that Mid-Sound Fisheries Enhancement Group led. So some of our strengths in this partnership, and again, the partnership that I'm speaking to is with ACBO and 2 city departments, is really around combining our expertise, our ability to access funding, both grant funding or otherwise, and then our sort of unique positions to advocate for a diverse and multi-benefit community park that is really about natural space. That was particularly helpful, and we continue to see the benefits through design. I also didn't mention this too much in my presentation, but we just have so much fun working together. This group has incredible dynamics. We are all really respectful of where we're coming from and have been meeting pretty consistently for the past 2.5 to 3 years, have developed many partnership materials that sort of support working together. And it's just been a lot of fun to develop these kind of working groups cross-sector and cross agency. So I want to say that that is foundational in this partnership. Had we not met so consistently and developed those relationships, the project would not be where it is today. We've had quite a few hiccups, many of which I did not speak to in this presentation, and the reason we're able to continue to move through them successfully is because we work together well. And then last, a strength is really this one that I spoke to when I showed the differences in how our design has progressed, and that is the ability to balance public access with creek protection. This is not a manicured park, it's a natural space, but it still provides public access. And so what does that look like in an urban area has been a really unique and exciting challenge for us. Some other challenges include how we go through decision making and approvals across 2 different departments and multiple funding streams. That's been challenging. We ultimately decided that Seattle Parks and Recreation would hold the contract for construction, and therefore would, because technically speaking, this is a park, and so it's under Parks and Recreation's jurisdiction, even though it's broadly city property. And so we would go through the park's sort of design review and approval process. But then there would be some individual stage gate and other approvals that both city departments had to make. We have differences. I mentioned this a little bit, but there's differences in how we define our priorities, how we think about funding. And so those have been good to work through in this project. And then the last challenge is about redefining what is property to the city. To a member of the public, it would not matter left or right who paid for what, just as long as there was a park there. And so we really need to continuously remind ourselves that this is really about delivering for community and not about some of the long-held maybe biases or tendencies to hold our cards closely because of existing silos and differences in industry. There have been really difficult things that with or without partnerships we would have struggled. The site, we had a big question about whether to fence it or not. That's not a typical thing that Seattle Parks and Recreation does for parks and public space. There have been encampments on the site and unhoused neighbors, and so thinking through how we want to address that humanely while also making sure that neighbors living in the adjacent parcels are still excited about this project and feel safe, and that all of the youth groups participating in pre-programming of the site and exploration of different opportunities for monitoring feel safe as well. So that's challenging. And then lastly, this is something that I called other people's pizza, and it's about having assets on a parcel that don't belong to any of the parties involved. So we had we still have a King County sewer main that moves this, is in the site, and have to design around that and have to make sure that we are addressing their sort of minimum standards, which turns out we're just going to work with them to redesign it, hopefully, so that it's outside of the floodplain area. I think it'll be beneficial to the design in general, but it's other people's pizza because it's something that you want to deal with in the way that you see fit, but unfortunately somebody else is eating that pizza, so you'll just have to wait and see what happens. That's it.
That's great. Thanks so much. going into that in a little more depth. So before we hop off today, somebody put a question in for Erin. Erin, could you explain again what you said about AmeriCorps members receiving extra points for testing for civil service status? This person who asked the question didn't quite understand what you had mentioned there.
So the way the civil service testing works in Philadelphia for city jobs, you take an exam and then you receive points, and those points determine where you land at in the list of qualified people who applied for that position. So the AmeriCorps points is similar to the points they get for veterans. It's not as many. I think veterans get 10 points, but if you have done national service through AmeriCorps, then you get an additional 3 to 5 points depending on how long you serve. And that adds to the points you already acquired through your testing and through your experience. If that makes sense.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Erin. All right, I'm going to fly back through the slides here to the end. Just a couple of closing remarks for you all today. So as I had mentioned before, this green infrastructure series is part of a 10-part series, and you can go ahead and sign up for email notifications when we have new webinars up on the EFCN Network's website training and events page. And so the next webinar, as you can see in this list, is going to be building a green infrastructure workforce. And that's actually great that Erin kind of prepped us for that one. We're going to go in depth and dedicate a whole webinar to that topic because it's such a big one. And this is just a slide to remind you who are attending today to please go ahead and fill out the survey for this webinar. It gives us really important feedback about future webinars in the series. We have 4 more, so I want to make sure that they're serving you and that they're looking good to you all. So fill out that survey. That would be great. Thank you all so much for attending today. Really appreciate your time. Again, the next webinar in our series is on workforce. It's scheduled for October 16th of this year. So keep your eye out for that one. Register when that flyer comes out. I'm your host for this series. You can always email me with questions. If you also want to get in contact with a speaker, you can do that through me or directly to the speakers. My email is spepper@unm.edu. Thanks everyone for coming, and we hope to see you at the next webinar in our series.